Welcome to Bridge the Atlantic. We are your hosts, music web designer Ross Barber.
And singer-songwriter Marcio Novelli.
Joining us today we have Jason Tate, writer, music enthusiast, podcaster, and founder of the AbsolutePunk website, his AbsolutePunk journey, the advice he'd offer to musicians, and what he's working on now. So, hey, Jason, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, buddy. We like to start off the show right away by asking you 3 things about yourself that everyone should know.
3 things about myself. Well, if you don't follow anything that I do, I like music, I like the internet and technology, and I'm pretty much a coffee and beer snob.
Wow, that's the fastest 3 answers I think we've ever had. Thank you. That's awesome.
You're welcome.
Someone asked us, they turned it on us the other week, and I don't even think I could think of one thing.
I had to help Russ.
But then straight after the call, I remembered lots of interesting stuff.
Well, the easy thing is that seeing as my job's so strange, and it's been strange for about 15 years now, I've kind of had to figure out how to answer those questions when people ask me what I do. Right. And especially my parents introduced me to their friends, so I've gotten used to answering some of these questions with a little bit of authority.
I love it. So AbsolutePunk, we're just going to jump right into it. Okay. How has the site changed from when it first started?
Oh, well, when it first started, it was basically all about Blink-182 and MXPX. I started it when I was 15 and in high school. And I started right when the internet kind of became something that you could do at home. We were still on dial-up modems at the time. So it was I was at home in my parents' basement goofing around with this new thing called the internet, uploading static pages to the internet about bands. And none of my friends wanted to talk about the music with me. It was just basically me listening to skate punk bands by myself, and all my other friends Pantera, Metallica, bands like that. And I was more drawn to the pop punk stuff. And so now that the internet kind of became this thing, I was able to find other people that wanted to talk about kind of music. And that's started where it was just let me just put some fun things up about bands that I'm listening to. Blink-182 started blowing up, and then I had all these other bands I wanted to talk about, hey, this band Sum 41's pretty cool. And then more people started listening to that band. It sort of just grew from there. And the biggest difference now is that it's a whole lot easier to update things online. The idea that we can sit here and actually have a conversation over video relatively well.
Although Ross looks like scrambled eggs here.
I mean, it's just the speed and the ability of the difference between trying to make an update and updating static pages by myself and having a CMS behind posting everything online is night and day, and just how much more I can do on a day-to-day basis, basically.
Well, yeah, you started it definitely way before social media became a thing, before MySpace and everything basically came around. So, what do you think the role of AP has in an age of social media now?
Well, I think what's nice about AP, and this has kind of been the thing that we focus on, is the idea of community. You can basically find a lot of information we post. It's all over the place. There's Tumblr blogs, people are posting it on Facebook. Bands themselves have taken such control of their social platforms that they're putting a lot of this information out anyway. And 5-10 years ago, a lot of bands didn't know that people wanted information about. Say they go into the studio, right? And they're in the studio. People want that information. They want pictures. They want little sound clips. They want just to know what the band's up to. That's something that people kind of have come to expect. And just even a few years ago, people didn't know about it. So anyway, you can find most of this information online. But what you can't find as well is a dedicated community of people that also want to share and talk about these things together. You can kind of find it on Twitter, say there's a hashtag that's following a certain band. You can talk back and forth. But there's a big difference between checking into a conversation every now and then and kind of seeing the same names maybe pop up versus on our site where if you sign up for the site and have an account, we've got people at this point that have made hundreds of thousands of posts on the website. So you can have more of a back and forth, and it just kind of becomes more of a just a smaller. With how big the internet is, we're definitely a little niche of one part of the music community, but that community really is, I think, what differentiates us from just being noise.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, actually. AbsolutePunk was the case study I used in one of my, we call it dissertation. I guess it would just be an essay something. So it was for my degree. I chose the subject of writing about the impact. Well, I need to take a deep breath because it's a really long title. The impact of the internet on subcultural musical activity, focusing on hardcore punk and emo. Okay. There we go. That was it. That
is a mouthful.
You did it.
It is. Oh, it's so long. So my dissertation kind of focused around how people interacted with each other before the internet in those music scenes, and the internet came along, how that changed how people communicated and how they found new music and all that kind of stuff. I used the Absolute Punk forums to do my research. So I posted questions, and I was like, so why do you communicate on the forums? Why do you visit a site like Absolute Punk? What has it done for your life, basically? And it was really cool to get all the responses, and a lot of them were similar to the reason that I started using Absolute Punk, which was I grew up in a small city. It was a town at the time. It's a city now, but yeah, a small town. And people, I know it's great.
How much did you weigh at birth, Ross?
£1.09, which is absolutely nothing. But anyway, that's a whole other story. I almost died. Whole other story. You're distracting me, Marcio. So yeah, the whole reason I started using Absolute Punk was because in the city that I grew up in, I didn't know anyone who liked that kind of music. Mm-hmm. And when I found Absolute Punk, it was just like, it was kind of like a safe haven, I guess, where I could talk about the music I liked without people looking at me going, "How do you like that? That's not radio."
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it created a sense of community. I think for me, it's a sense of a community as well as a place to find new music.
Yeah, I found so much new music through Absolute Punk. It was just like you knew one band you liked, and from there you could find another and another and another.
Absolutely.
And my bank balance probably is not happy with Absolute Punk because I spent so much money on music and merch.
You're welcome.
Gig tickets, and it's crazy. But
I think I found the two people that still buy music. So.
Oh yeah, I'm always buying music and merch, and yeah. But Absolute Punk it's been a very important part of my musical journey, I would say. So thank you for that.
Well, that's exciting. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So, Jason, tell us a little bit about Absolute Punk podcast.
Yeah, well, the podcast is something that is relatively recent. We're recording episode 70 today, so it's been maybe a little bit over year and a half or so. Now we try to do it every week. It started with the idea that I like podcasts, and I started listening to a lot more podcasts probably about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And that was the kind of medium that really excited me in the same way that the internet excited me for the first time. Like I remember the first time I started kind of quote blogging, right? Like you're putting your words out there, you're writing something, you're editing it, and then as I started exploring this whole idea of podcasting, I really like the idea of being able to talk something out with other people in a way that's just not me kind of monologuing online. And so I talked to two other staff members, Drew Berner and Thomas Massive, about the idea of what if we did some sort of podcast together? What if we the three of us got together and just started talking about music, talked kind of a little bit about what sort of things are going on in the music scene right now? Is there a big story that's broken? Can we talk about that? And it kind of evolved from there. We kind of started with more of an interview type show. We would talk to bands and things like that. But I'm sure, as you guys know, sometimes trying to coordinate that with somebody else is just such a pain. We'd get people trying to call in, and they're on their iPhones on the road. You can just hear the road in the background the entire time. So we weren't getting quality. It was kind of a pain. Trying to get make sure that we could do it every single week was a pain. So after that, we kind of decided let's just do a 3-man show. It's just 3 of us talking about what we love to talk about, which is music. We know what we are. We know what we want to do each week, and it's been a whole lot of fun. As I said, still my friends today don't necessarily want to talk about music much with me. So that hasn't changed in 15 years. However, because of the internet, I found people that do want to talk about music with me, and 2 people that I would consider very close friends. We have differences and similarities, but I really enjoy just being able to sit down and explore these topics with other people each week. It's been a lot of fun.
That's really, really cool, man.
Awesome. Yeah, Absolute Punk is definitely, it's in my, I subscribe to quite a lot of podcasts, but there's probably 3 or 4 that are the ones I most look forward to, and yours and Off the Record with Jesse Cannon and Zach Cirillo, that's another one of my big favorites.
Yeah, I like that our little part of the music world is starting to dive into that more. I think that's cool. I think that the medium is just starting to kind of pick up, and I think that the more people are exposed to it and find things like this, and that's what's cool about podcasts. It's similar to blogs.
So do you have any funny stories of bands that maybe have sent you material, or anyone running into you in real life, or anything whatsoever that would be a little strange, weird, funny, scary, sad? I don't know. More adjectives here.
Maybe more recently. So I've been dating my girlfriend now for about 3 years, and right when we got together was right when I was moving down here. I live downtown now. I lived out in a small little suburb before, and right as I was making the move downtown, there was a difference between selling my house, buying the new place, and there was about a week where I basically had to stay in a hotel. So I had just met my girlfriend like a week before I was moving, and I'm staying in a hotel, and we went out to dinner, and then we were coming back to drop off some stuff, and then we were going to go out. And as I'm in the elevator, I look over, and a guy kind of looks at me and kind of does this weird thing where he like does a double take, and then he kind of goes, "Hey, this is going to sound really weird, but are you Jason Tate?" And I was like, yeah. He's like, oh my God. And so he freaks out in the elevator and is like, oh my God, I need to get like a selfie with you. Like, we got to take some pictures. So has my girlfriend that we're not even boyfriend and girlfriend at this point. We've known each other like less than a week. And it's like, can I take a picture? And so we get off the elevator, and she's like, what the hell was that? Like, what, like, who are you? What just happened? And I like barely talked to her about like kind of what my job is. And like, I think we were like, had not even become like Facebook friends or anything. And also she's like, okay, like now I got to Google you and kind of figure out like what's going on with this. I was like, oh man, I was like, this never happens. Trust me. Like this, on the ranking of like celebrities, I'm like a D-list at best. She's like, you have a lot of followers on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. Just like, what am I getting myself into? I'm like, this will probably be the last time in our entire relationship anybody recognizes me in an elevator. I mean, I type online and people maybe could recognize my voice now with the podcast, but besides that, like, I'm an internet thing. But so that was one of those situations where, and as you
put
said,
that in
like,
your bio, by the way, I'm an internet thing.
I'm an internet thing.
Internet thing. I like that.
Celebrity. Yeah. So that's definitely one of the more weird things that have happened.
That's great.
From like a cool standpoint, like it really comes down to anytime like a band, like I'll meet up with a band and they'll just like have to say thank you and say like, thank you so much for like, talking about us or doing this or, and those are the moments where I just never expected. You put stuff out online, like you write something and then you hit publish and it goes out there. Band members say that people have come up to them at shows and said, I found out about your band from AbsolutePunk.net. Like, Jason was talking about you guys, and so I started listening to him. And for me, like that's just it's such a strange feeling because I'm just sitting there being like, man, I'm just a fan of your band. Like, I love what you guys did. Like, thank you. Like, thank you for making the music to begin with. And don't thank me. Like, I just happened to talk about it online one day. Like, I just feel like I shouldn't get the credit for that,
So do you still keep that mentality of where you're writing something, you don't really overthink the fact that, so many people can be reading it?
Yeah, for better or for worse,
Yeah.
Sometimes I definitely say things that without thinking about it as much as I probably should, and that's definitely a problem because that now there are a lot more people reading things that I write, and I think that it just always came down to like I just had something I wanted to say, and so I was like, I'm just going to say it, like I'm just going to type it out online, like screw it, let's see what happens. And that's
what's endearing though, I think, about Absolute Punk, and I think that's why people are still into it. The honesty,
Yeah, I would agree, and I do think that like a big part of it for me has always been. That if people don't trust me, like if they don't trust that what I'm saying is actually real, we're going to lose, what we have to begin with. Like, because people need to know that, like, if I say I like something, that I mean it. And that goes both ways. Like, you have to have the counterbalance of saying, if I dislike something, or if I don't like something, or if I feel strongly about a certain topic, that I'm going to speak honestly about it, because otherwise you're going to end up just not trusting me at all. And I think that that's way worse.
Well, what sort of advice would you give to musicians and bands and solo artists that would like to be written up on Absolute Punk?
Yeah, so basically I'd say I'd break this up into two portions. One being if you want me to check out your music or somebody on Absolute Punk to check out your music versus, trying to promote yourself to the general public as a whole. When it comes to trying to pitch me or one of my writers, what I've always said is that brevity and getting right to the point is really important. If you send me an email and it's got huge intro paragraph, it's got 3 paragraphs about who you sound like and putting all these comparisons together, we sound like Thrice mixed with Paul Simon if Radiohead mixed them. You get weird stuff like that all the time. I'm just it's hey, we kind of sound like Blink-182. At least I know what realm you're in. You don't need to then tell me mixed with Jesse Lacey's vocals. That doesn't necessarily help me, because I can listen to it and be oh, now I can draw these conclusions. So basically what I'm saying is that I like getting information very quickly, something I can scan. If I have to scroll your bio or press release, I'm usually not scrolling through emails. I get way too much email to be I'm going to read this entire thing. I want to be able to look at it, skim through, be oh, okay, this one sounds like something I should check out, this one doesn't, and vice versa. When it comes to promoting yourself online, I really do think that the first thing is to make sure that you have a good online presence and have good songs. That goes a long way. And I think that making sure you have solid songs, that you've spent a lot of time writing those songs and presenting them in a professional manner, that goes a long way before getting into any of the other nitty-gritty.
I absolutely couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, definitely. Yep. Definitely. No, I think especially now the market is so saturated that people aren't putting enough time into developing their craft and, like you said, presenting it professionally. You know what I mean? So great advice. Great advice.
Definitely. And especially, in this day and age, you can sign up for Squarespace, Tumblr. There's a variety of platforms that make it really easy to do and take the effort and the time to do that.
Do you listen to everything you receive?
Not everything. I just, at this point, it's so much. My email inbox is ridiculous. I used to always say I will at the very least try to go through everything in my inbox. I read everything I get. It's not that I just delete things en masse, but to actually listen to absolutely everything, there's just not enough time in the day to do that, let alone also spend time listening to things that I know I like, because I still love music so much, and it's if I find an album that I really like and I want to digest and really get into, I want to spend a week just listening to that, and I still want to be able to experience that, because that is still something that I'm passionate about. And if every waking hour was just listening to new bands or new things that were sent to me, it wouldn't happen. So I wish that I could, but it's just not a feasible. It's just much.
Yeah. No, it makes sense too. You got to grab it's just contacting an A&R or anything like that. You got to grab their attention first, then you got to keep their attention.
Yeah.
Big thanks to Jason for joining us on today's episode of Bridge the Atlantic. Unfortunately, we had some technical issues, so we had to cut the interview short. But if you're interested in finding out more about Jason and what he does, you can visit absolutepunk.net. You'll find him on Twitter at Jason_Tate and also at chorus.fm.
Thanks for watching Bridge the Atlantic. If you like what you saw, make sure to like, favorite, and most importantly, subscribe so that you don't miss each week's episode.
Click on the videos above us if you'd like to see more, and please feel free to leave us a comment letting us know what you think of the show.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and subscribe to us on iTunes so that you can listen to us on the go. Thanks again for being awesome, and we'll see you on next week's episode.